Hey everybody, Mo here, and today I'm bringing you guys the last Meta Monday. You can look at it two ways: either the last Meta Monday of the previous season of World Ender season, or the first Meta Monday of the new season, whatever it's going to be called. Because things are going to be a little bit weird. So, first off, we're going to go over the decks and the lineups that the seasonal winners that just happened played and how they won. Congratulate them. And then we're going to talk about the future season and what that holds a little bit. There will be a bigger video coming out on that. We're going to touch on it a little bit and explain kind of why this Meta Monday is happening, because most of that know, the pattern is usually seasonal tournament, and then new set of cards and new season starts, the following Wednesday. So there's really only 3 days. And then ranked ladder resets, and then we get new cards, and then boom, we go into it. But that's not what's happening this time, so I'm going to try and explain a little bit of how I understand what's going to be happening. First things first. Like and subscribe. That's the first thing. Is 68% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. So if you can do me a huge favor, click that subscribe button. We are going hard in content this year again. I came back from a big break over this winter. I just moved into my new place. That's why the scenery is different. I have my own room, my own recording room where I can record content and all that type of stuff. Don't worry, these walls aren't gonna stay white and boring forever. I have a curtain for here. I have posters and stuff to put behind me, arcane poster, all that type of stuff that Riot sent me. So things will get decorated over time, and then it'll feel more, I guess normal or more gamer space, I guess. I don't know what the word for it is. But yeah, so that's why last week's was a little bit, rough. I still put out some videos and some shorts, but starting again this week now, we're finally all moved in, just had a couple, touch-ups in each of the individual rooms. I'll have a lot more time to actually, put out the content and stuff for you. So I will have that, ready for you again, starting this one, starting today with this Meta Monday. So if you're interested in all that, bunch of competitive stuff, I'm going really hard at competitive this year, assuming the competitive announcement is a good one, and we don't get a competitive announcement like how Blizzard did their Hearthstone 10-year anniversary announcement or whatever it was, and then their announcement was we killed competitive. Assuming Riot's competitive revamping is actually good and it's an actual revamping and there is still a competitive scene, I plan to go really hard into this competitive scene. I just played in seasonals this last weekend, and it really hyped me up and really just reignited my love for competing, and so I'm going to go hard into it again. Meaning my YouTube content is also going to go back to competitive. I know a lot of you guys are competitive gamers. I know most of you follow me for my competitive deck guides and my tips and tricks and all that type of stuff. More of that coming soon. So if you're a competitive player, aspiring competitive player, this is going to be the place to be. The Discord's the place to be. So make sure to subscribe. Comment down below if you're also excited for the new competitive revamping. And that's going to be it. Let's get into this Meta Monday. Sorry, I got something out of hangnail or something. So first off, we're going to go over the seasonal winners from this weekend. Congratulations we'll start with the biggest one, Floppy Mudkip. Only player, so this weekend was the last seasonals ever. There's no more seasonal tournaments. There will be more tournaments, obviously. There's still a competitive scene, but they're changing it to like Runeterra Opens, or they're like renaming it, saying how the stuff works. But no more seasonal tournaments, so this was it. So congratulations to Floppy Mudkip. He is the only player to ever win 2 seasonal championships back-to-back. He is the only player to ever win back-to-back seasonals. He is the only Western player to ever win 2 seasonals, and he is the only player ever to win only 2 seasonals. And that's very specific, to only win 2 seasonals, because we're going to break that record here in a moment. But huge congrats to Floppy. He's done amazing stuff. Tournament GOAT in NA for the last year. Done really well. I don't think his Worlds run went really, really well for him, but obviously winning back-to-back seasonals, really good. His team he's on, Red Pup Gaming, RPG, insanely talented. I think they had, since the start of last year, they've had half of all of NA's top 4s. They've had, I think, a finalist in every single seasonal or something very similar to that. And obviously now they have, not only a seasonal champion, but the only person to ever go back-to-back seasonal wins, and the only person in all of Legends of Runeterra to have exactly 2 seasonal wins. So obviously they're doing great stuff there. He gives them a shout out here, one of their founding members, I think. I'm not too sure about that, but really good stuff. So let's take a look at the lineup he brought. So he brought Twisted Fate Katarina, so this Noxus control style deck. He brought Aphelios, this Pantheon Varus style deck, so a lot of people are calling this Pantheon deck. And then he brought Feel the Rush, which is an oops all spells style of Feel the Rush. If you see here, there's no ramp units at all. There's no healing units. There's no cheap units. All of his cheap early game is in the spells. Quietus is high value. Vile Feast, he runs 2 boxes. This is to counter all the Echo Jinx players and just the Lulu Jinx players in general. They're spitting out a bunch of units. It's really good. Triple Vengeance to stop the really big Canes and Aatroxes and stuff like that. You see here, no Ruination because he's on the double Buried in Ice and She Who Wonders and If That Stairs combo. Being able to obliterate units is very, very good, especially things like the Echo, especially against things like weapons. Buried in Ice absolutely destroys weapons, literally destroys weapons. So it destroys the the Aatrox Kane deck because they have all their units equipped with all these weapons, and then most of the time how it works against control decks is you clear their board, you kill all their units. And then the Aatrox Kane player says, okay, well, here's a bunch of more units, put my equipment back on them, cast World Ender, boom, I have my full board back. Well, Buried in Ice completely stops that in general. So what was the idea of this lineup? I assume it's to beat, Aatrox Kane. Katarina, Twisted Fate, pretty solid into Aatrox Kane. This deck really good into Aatrox Kane. And then this deck, obviously, insanely good into Aatrox Kane. So it was a very hard target on Aatrox Kane, as well as, I believe this was a soft target onto the Jinx decks as well, because this deck is very good into Jinx. All of the Noxus control decks, very good into Jinx. Ravenous Flock, very good at dealing with things. Heavy Metal, very good at dealing with small units. Obviously, you have your bunch of chump blockers with House Spider, Mirai Warden. Your Make It Rain kills all the 1 HP units. Death's Hand kills all the cheaper units. Twisted Fate, obviously a board clear for all the small units, so very solid into all the Echo or all the Jinx game plans. You have this deck, which is also really good into Jinx game plans because you can match their early game with these cheap units. Divine Clerk, for those of you that don't know, when he's a 1-mana 2/1. Once he gets 3 power, I forgot what I think it's called empowered is the keyword. Once he gets 3 or more power, then he actually gains lifesteal. So he's a good way to kind of just, I took a little bit of damage early. Let me put, this weapon on him. Let me go Momentous Choice him. Let me put the weapon on him from Wandering Shepherd. And then now I have a decently sized lifelink unit. Lifesteal unit, and it can do a lot of work that way. Your Frostbites are really good into the Kane Aatrox matchups, as well as once you get a decently sized unit, you having that with Furious Wielder, you have some Guiding Touch and stuff like that. You can take control back of against the Lulu Jinx game plans pretty easily. This deck plays some of the draw 2 card here, so you can keep up the momentum. You're like, I'm kind of running out of cards, 2-mana draw 2. Sure, they're fleeting, but most of them are fairly cheap, so you can kind of just not run out of cards and keep up with the draw engine that a lot of the Jinx decks have, especially with Lulu Jinx specifically. You can keep up with that card generation because you have a bunch of card draw yourself. And then the last one, so this version is specifically good into the Lulu decks because Box, really good into Lulu deck. This deck plays 4 Avalanches, which is really good into the Lulu decks. And then as well as, Vile Feast. So between the 4 Avalanches, the 2 Boxes, and then the Vile Feast, you Vengeance their 1 Jinx that they draw, and then you just, win. Or you can Turbo Ramp with things like Catalyst and Wild Mysticism. And out of nowhere, you just play She Who Wins, and She Who Wonders literally wins the game on the spot against any Jinx decks, against just most decks in general. So I think this lineup is very, very smart, and this lineup is actually really similar to the lineup I brought to the open rounds. I brought TF Swain. Echo, the Echo Jinx deck, and then Plunder, which essentially had the same idea. It was, I'm going to hard target the Kane Aatrox decks, and then I'm going to have an okay matchup into the Lulu Jinx decks. So I really respect it. And the really cool thing about this is we're going to take a look at the EU winner now, who's Ultraman. Congratulations to Ultraman. Man's been grinding since Runeterra started. Had the highest LP ever of any player ever in the history of LOR. So, this guy's been working. If you've been around LOR, you know this guy's name. He's been insane. He's been a seasonal finalist before. I think he had, back-to-back top 8s into a top 4, and then finally finished it out with a win, a well-deserved win. Guy's insane. Let's look at his lineup. What is this? He has a Noxus control deck. Okay, what is this? Another Noxus control deck. And what's his third deck? It's the same Pantheon Varus, mid-range deck. I don't know if it's card for card, but it looked almost card for card. Let me see here. I think it might actually be card for card. Let's see, 2, 3, 3. Yeah, I think this is literally a card for card, even the 2 of here. No, because he's on 3 Saga Seeker. So it's not exactly card for card because we got the Lunar or the Iulas, but either way, extremely similar, and this is the same game plan. Instead of playing Field Rush, though, he opted into the double Noxus control deck. Very fine option. Didn't want to get beat out by any of the hard control counter matchups, and I think just was really, really banking on the Aatrox Kane and the Echo Jinx gameplay. There's a lot of people are on Echo Jinx over Lulu Jinx. this weekend. So going into Top Cut, where you can identify very specific metas and very specific decks doing well, I think this read was really good, and it was it was a very solid read that did really well for our EU champion. So I'm not too much to say here. Lulu Swain is basically just every other Noxus control deck. Noxus control deck, and then thing. We already talked about these. And then the third one we're going to talk about here is the APAC seasonal champion. Unfortunately, I couldn't find their deck list anywhere, but I can tell you the decks that they won with, which were Echo Jinx. So that's new. He did bring the best deck in the game. And then he had Cultist, the Pantheon Varus Cultist deck. And I actually don't know what their third deck is. I scoured the Twitter trying to find it. I found his Twitter. It basically, he didn't even tweet out that he won seasonals. The guy is just crazy. I don't know. He didn't tweet out that he won seasonals, didn't tweet out his deck list. Nowhere is tweeting out his deck list. Even on the Taiwanese broadcast that they had, they don't show their deck list anywhere. They didn't show the ban phase, so I couldn't even tell you what the third deck was, because they didn't even show up the ban phase or the deck list or anything like that. So I have no idea what his third deck was. But his two decks that he actually played and won in the finals was this Varus Pantheon Cultist style deck and an Echo Jinx deck. So very interesting to see those two paired together. Again, I can't go too much into detail about that because I don't know what his strategy was, because I don't know what the third deck was. But something really cool to take away from all of this is he won the seasonal championship, and he has now won 3 seasonal championships. Yes. So while Floppy, the reason why I said it very specifically, Floppy is the only player to win exactly 2 seasonals, is because this guy from APAC, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm very sorry. I just know it translates to literally the word awesome. So I'm just going to call him Awesome. Awesome has won 3 seasonal championships, making him the most winningest seasonal champion, putting him as the highest paid LOR player outside of the world's winners. So if you don't count Alan ZQ's world championship, you don't count Aragorn's world championship, he's actually the highest paid LOR player with 3 seasonal championships, and then the other top cuts he has altogether. Because that right there racks in $30,000 US, not including his other top cuts, which I think brings him around to $32,500 or something like that, $1,000. And the only people that have more money than that from LOR earnings are the 2 world champions, and that's because winning a world championship literally gives you $40,000. So, outside of winning the world championship, you'd have to win 4 seasonal championships to have more money than this guy has made in Legends of Runeterra, which is absolutely insane. So huge congratulations to him. The record won't be broken. There are no more seasonal champions. He's definitely one of the best tournament players and definitely not talked about enough. He's very sleeper. Obviously, APAC is not the strongest region we have, but it's still winning a seasonal championship in any region is still very impressive. Winning 3 is just ungodly. So huge congratulations to them. And now for the final part of the Meta Monday, we're going to actually look at the meta and do a regular meta recap. And the reason I'm doing this is because while we're not getting an expansion this upcoming week, they are revamping competitive scene. I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're actually still resetting ranked on Wednesday. For what I've heard, ranked is still resetting Wednesday, and we're starting kind of a beta season. So this season isn't going to qualify you for Worlds or anything, but it'll be our first look at the new competitive revamped system. And it's actually going to be our chance to kind of try it out, give Riot our feedback, and then they take our feedback from the beta system and go and actually apply that, all those changes and all our feedback, to the first real season that qualifies you for Worlds and stuff like that, which I'm all a fan of. It does kind of suck to have a season that doesn't qualify for Worlds, especially if you end up doing really well and you win the big tournament. It's oh, I won the big tournament, but no real, no grand reward for it. It's still really nice because it means in the long run things are going to be really, well thought out and really well put together. So I'm in favor for it, as well as it just kind of gives us a season to get used to the new changes. Like I said, we're getting daily tournaments, monthly big open tournaments. There's a rotation. There's a lot of changes coming. So I'm happy to take a season to just learn the new system, with it not feeling as stressful, with there being such a big, thing hovering above my head. Oh, you have to do well because it's counting towards Worlds and blah, 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 blah. So I don't know, I'm all in favor for it. So what we're going to do is we are going to quickly go over the meta decks and tell you which ones are doing well and what are some sleeper decks you can be looking out for. and stuff like that, in case ranked does reset Wednesday. If ranked doesn't reset Wednesday, just disregard this part of the video. If it does reset Wednesday, here you go. This tells you what decks are doing really well, because it'll be the same meta, because we're not having a patch because of the Riot hack. Someone hacked Riot, and so it set back all of their plans. So we're not getting a patch this Wednesday, as well as we're not getting new cards this Wednesday. So it will just be a new season starting with the old meta. So we're just going to speed run this top 8, because none of these decks are new. All of these decks we've seen before, and yeah, so there's no reason to go super in depth. I've gone in depth on them for the last month and a half in a row. Number 1, Katarina Gwen. I think this deck's just super popular in Masters because it's kind of an aggressive combo deck now, and it's very easy to play, and a lot of people like aggressive combo decks. Number 2 is going to be Aatrox Kayn. Aatrox Kayn is a very solid mid-range deck. Can't be targeted really easily, but most of the time the decks that have to go out of their way to target it just are not very good in general into the field. Plunder in my hands has been kind of a medium okay deck, but Plunder in some people's hands is just absolutely insane. Sometimes you get draws with Plunder where you just can't lose the game, and sometimes you get draws with Plunder where you're like, why do people ever queue this deck up? A lot of that has to do with, are you drawing your Spirits Unleashed, and a lot of them have to do with, are you drawing your champions. If you can draw a Spirits Unleashed or your champions, typically you're going to win that game, and it feels really good. 4 and 5 come in as your Jinx decks, whichever flavor of Jinx you prefer. You prefer the Lulu Jinx flavor, which is the more traditional aggro swarmy style deck with your Jinx top end, or do you want the Echo Jinx, which is going to be a semi-aggro but more combo-based deck where you kind of just set up the first couple turns, and then you get your Chrono Breaks, get your Echoes in play, stuff like that, and then you kind of just become really hard to deal with because you also have Deny backup, you have the Burn game plan, you have the Voices game plan, you kind of overload your opponent with too many threats and they can't deal with it. Number 6 is Feel the Rush. A lot of people are actually going back to the control style of Feel the Rush. We see here, some Vengeances. Extalia Sentinel is really weird. I don't believe that's standard. We'll look at this number 1, guys. But yeah, we see here, people are back on the Avalanches, the Vengeances, Vile Feast, Boxes. We see a lot of that nowadays. So right here, even a Withering Well, that's kind of crazy. But hey, if it works for you, it works for you. Whatever, you're seeing in your little pocket meta, tech for that. There's Feel the Rush. Leona Katarina, deck is still insanely good. A lot of players are really good. You see the top 3 players on this have an 80% win rate. Huge congrats to them. Deck's a really good aggro deck. If you're just looking to play games quickly, this is going to be the deck for you. It punishes any type of bad deck. It has solid matchups, as we see here, into just random stuff, but more importantly, it beats Red Gwyn, which is really, really good. The fact that you can beat the most played deck, you can beat another top played deck, you beat a lot of the highly represented decks, and that's something that's really important to do when you're playing in ladder, because if you can beat the most played deck, that's essentially 9% of the meta, then you can also beat this, that's another 3, you're beating 13% of the meta with just those 2 stats alone, not including all the other stats and all the other variants of those decks and the nuances. Just those 2 alone, you're favored into 13.5% of your games. That's pretty good. That means if you play 10 games, you should automatically win 1.5 of those. That's pretty good. If you play 20 games, you automatically win 3 of those. I mean, that's on average, not including all of the other matchups that we see here, just those 2 matchups alone, which pretty good. And then number 8 is going to be TF Swain. I think people finally picked up that TF Swain is just really good into the Jinx decks. This Noxus Control in general is really good into the Jinx decks. It's really good into Katarina, the Red Gwyn. If you look at the Red Gwyn worst matchup tables, literally your 3 worst matchups is Noxus Control, Noxus Control, Noxus Control. Oh, and then aggro, Noxus. Literally this deck just cannot handle Noxus in the slightest. So people realize Noxus is really good into there. Noxus is good into Kayn Aatrox. Noxus is going to be good into these Jinx decks because you can just kill all their threats on sight. Your only downside is you're going to be really weak into the big Freljord SI control decks, and you can struggle with some random mid-range or random aggro decks just simply because you don't have lifesteal. Not this one specifically. This one you'll still beat most of the time, but burn decks, because if you don't have lifesteal and the burn decks just kind of burn you out, sucks to suck. But you see here, most of its bad matchups are just big SI deck, big SI deck, big SI deck, random SI deck, because the way you beat these Noxus control decks is they really only usually play 2 threats to win the game. So for instance, this deck really only ever wins with Swain and Leviathan. So if you can kind of just trade away all their shitty small units, and then you just on-site kill Swain, on-site kill Leviathan, you can probably just straight up run them out of like lethal resources, and that's what a lot of the Shadow Isle control decks do. This deck also struggles at killing the like full HP large units, and a lot of the SI decks will either win with like pulling out multiple huge HP or multiple full HP huge units, or in the case of Nora Viger, is you just play so many like small and medium sized units they just cannot keep up with it, and that's really good for you. For the Nora decks. So there you go. Those are your top 8 most played decks. I would personally probably play like a Swain TF would be my go-to deck for ladder right now. It'd either be Swain TF or Echo Jinx. I don't really see myself playing anything other than those two at the moment because Swain TF is just so good into a lot of the most played decks that on average you're going to be favored into most of your matchups, and then on top of that you should be able to skill diff the other matchups because the deck is just bad players playing into Noxus control deck is just like any card game where if you're a bad player or like an inexperienced player playing into control decks, they're just gonna go play my threat, and then the control deck goes remove it, and then the new player goes, oh that sucks, play my second threat, and then the control player goes remove it, and then now they just are out of threats, and you just kind of run away with the game because they said, oh, here are my 2 threats, not thinking about what my opponent could have. And that's typically just how control players beat, inexperienced or newer players consistently across any card game ever, and that happens a lot in LOR too. LOR is no different. So that's it. That's gonna be your Meta Monday. That's your meta recap, your weekend recap, all that type of stuff. Again, make sure to subscribe and comment down below what you thought of this last seasons. If any of these decks surprised you, if you're really, we're rooting for someone and they didn't make it, or they did make it, how are your thoughts about that? Join my Discord, links in the description down below. Number one place for competitive LOR. And like I said, I am going to go head first, all in on this competitive season, especially the new competitive revamping sounds really exciting. I'm waiting for the video or for the announcement of Riot to come out explaining what the new system like actually is, and then I'll make a video on that. So if you're interested in that, also make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on so you know whenever I can post all of the competitive information and let you guys know. But yeah, this is going to be the place for competitive content. I know that I'm one of the most, when you search like any type of competitive LOR content, I'm usually one of the top people that show up. That's for a good reason. I know a lot of competitive stuff. I've been everywhere you can be in LOR. I've won everything except for Worlds that you could win in LOR. Worlds is basically the only tournament that I haven't performed exceptionally well in. So if you're looking for competitive LOR, if you're new to it or just getting into it because of the revamping, this is going to be the place to be for all that content. So that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one.